Improv, embracing the unpredictable in life and in business. This particular episode, the unknown. That's what improv is. Improv is the unknown and how you deal with those variables that are being handed to you and how you work with them. That's what the show is going to be all about, and how embracing improv will help you in your business and also in your life. So let's get on to the show. You're listening to Be in Demand, the podcast for honest advice, inspiring stories, and ideas for growing your business by leveraging the expert that you are. I'm your host, Laurie-Ann business mentor, and I'm also a reformed painfully shy girl, red wine lover, and exercise enthusiast. Join me as I share how being positioned as the expert in your industry, even if it's a busy one, will help you stand out and be the one in demand to hire and work with. So improv. You're probably thinking, I'm not acting. I don't need to learn about improv. And I'm going to tell you, yes, you do. Because improv is so much more than just for the acting and theater world. As a matter of fact, it is a great exercise, and I've used these exercises in leadership development programs when I was working with corporate organizations, very high-level executives. And I remember once meeting with the board and them asking me like, well, what sort of leadership development training and team building training are you going to do for us? He hired me because I said improv. And he told me the reason why he was saying yes to me, and because of the improv, he said, because it scares me. And that's why he said yes. He wanted to say yes to something that would scare him. So that was very good feedback that he was willing to do something that scared him. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about something very similar with my background. The dictionary definition of like improvise is to invent or make something at the time when it is needed without already having planned it. And isn't that what life is? As much as we plan our lives, set our goals, you plan your day, you move forward, it doesn't always go exactly as you planned. Life has what I'm going to call, it hands you variables. What are you going to do with the variables that you are being given? Today's variables, this particular situation's variables. Like I'm recording this podcast. What if my microphone just suddenly died? As a matter of fact, I had recorded already half of this very episode and then realized I hadn't hit record or just hadn't touched it well enough for it to actually start recording. There's a variable I had to redo. Now I could get upset about something like that, or I could just say, great, here's another perspective on it. Here's another way to look at this. I just had a warm up to this particular episode. So I believe that life is improv. Everything about life is improv. As much as you think you know what's going to happen in the future, you actually really don't. We don't really know. So I'm going to use this example of, let's say I go to the gym. And I have already set the intention that I'm going to work my upper body. And I've got in my mind, I'm going to use the cables. And I get to the gym and the cables are broken. The cables have a long line. The gym is suddenly extra busy. Well, I don't have the time. I'm looking at my watch and I need to get home and I only have an hour that I can be here. I need to do my workout. So I could get upset about this and let the broken cables or the long lines ruin the rest of my day. Or a little bit of improv. I've been handed some variables. Cables are broken or there's a long line. What am I going to do in the moment that wasn't planned so that I can still get my workout in upper body? Well, a couple of things. I can use free weights or body weight exercises to exercise my upper body. I can decide spur of the moment, you know what? I'll do upper body tomorrow. I'll do a cardio day today. I'll just change my workout. It wasn't planned, but I can still check the box of my workout. So just from that example, maybe you can just like look back at your life and realize, oh yeah, maybe you're agreeing with me. Like, yeah, she's right. Like life is improv. We are constantly being handed some variables. What am I going to do with this? Like, I run into traffic. My launch doesn't go as well as planned. A client who said yes suddenly is changing their mind. Now I have to help them overcome their objections. I have to share more information with them. You write this amazing email and your computer just shuts down. The internet, like goes flat, so to speak. And you lose everything that you had just been working on for the past hour. There's improv. Like, what will you do next? So I also think that our reactions is also part of this improv stuff. But it's interesting what you can learn from this. So years ago, I went to a speaking conference to enhance my skills, and I said yes to an improv breakout session. And I said yes for a couple of reasons. To get out of my comfort zone. Because I knew, my little bit that I knew about improv, I knew that it would make me uncomfortable to be in there, in the room, doing improv in front of everybody else who was trying to do improv. Not that that made me feel any better, but I just knew getting out of my comfort zone would serve me in the long run. This would be something that would be good for me. And every once in a while, I will do something that scares me just so that I get out of my comfort zone. So while I'm in this room, this breakout session, there were a lot of exercises that we had to do. Did I feel stupid? A little bit, yes. And maybe there were some exercises I felt a lot stupid. But guess what? I was in a room of people and we were all doing the same thing. And this is when I realized life is improv. Speaking is improv. Because you never know what's going to happen. Like when you're speaking, when you're hired to speak, you show up, whether it's in person or it's virtual. Zoom's not working. Your host has the wrong time that she's asking you to show up versus the audience. You show up for an in-person event. You are under the impression there is going to be, a projector so that you can show some slides. And you realize when you get there, oh no, they don't have one. That has actually happened to me before. What will you do right then and there? They don't have a microphone. It's a big room. There's a giant pillar in the room, and everywhere that you move, only half the audience can see you. Again, that is something that has actually happened to me. And so it's improv. And how are you dealing with this situation? Because you are there to speak. So being able to handle these challenging situations in a very graceful manner is actually a great skill to learn. Because one, I always feel like, and this is my belief, and you get to decide what you want, but it's my job to make the person who hired me look like a rock star. And I do not want to be a difficult speaker to work with. I want to be easy to work with. So if I'm being asked like, hey, the speaker before you is running a little bit late, can you, cut off like 10, 15 minutes of your presentation? Okay, that's a little bit of improv. There's a variable that's been handed to me. What section of my speech am I going to get rid of? What exercise might I eliminate? Or what story can I shorten that is still going to have the impact for the audience? When somebody asks you a question, you don't know that's the questions that people are going to ask. And this is part of the reason why I tell people, my clients and my students, that you always have your Q&A before you end your speech. And if that's the first time that you've heard that, there's other episodes that have speaking tips, and I actually dive into that a little bit more. But when somebody asks you a question, you're actually using improv to answer that question on the spot. And if you don't know the answer to the question, remember, you've always heard me say that it's okay to say, hey, let me get back to you. Give me your contact information. Anybody else who wants to know the answer to that, come up and make sure you give me your contact information. I will make sure that I get that answer out to you. But answering questions is improv while you're speaking. The other wonderful thing about improv, it gets you out of your head. It gets you out of your head and into your body. And speaking is a full body experience for you, the speaker, the presenter, and also for your audience. They are feeding off of not just the words that they're hearing, not just the tone of your voice, but watching you. I mean, I'm sure that you can think about times where you've heard a speaker who is standing behind the lectern and telling a story versus a speaker that was right there in front of you, away from a lectern, holding the microphone and almost acting out the story and sharing with you the lesson. There's a difference. So that's what improv will help you do, is get out of your head and into your body. And with storytelling, you really have to embody your story, embody your message, because that's what the audience is going to remember. This is part of how I help my clients have those captivating and compelling stories. And it's those kind of stories that the audience is going to remember. There is a jackknife story that I tell from my leadership days, and I would have people come up to me in the hallways of the conference center, recognize me and say, "Are you going to tell that jackknife story?" Yes, I am. That's how much they remember it. And just because somebody remembers you telling a story once does not mean you can't ever tell it again. They want to hear it again, even though they know maybe what the punchline is, what they know, what's going to happen at the end of the story. You probably can feel my energy coming through to your earbuds, or however that you're listening to this. But improv is going to help you get out of your head, into your body, and really just embrace your story. The other thing that I love about improv, it teaches you to be okay with imperfection. Imperfection. Like it helps you just shed this "I gotta be perfect" mold, because it's okay to look a little silly. This is how you'll actually bring out some of your humor in your facial expressions, your body language, maybe the way that you're acting out the story. Improv and doing some improv exercises will really just help you get rid of that imperfection. Because when I took that workshop, that breakout session, I felt uncomfortable. I felt foolish doing some of the exercises that they asked us to do. But I did look around and just say, you know what? Everybody else is doing this. So it's not like I'm the only one. We're all in this together. And being able to shed that perfectionism will serve you not just in speaking, it will serve you in so many different areas of your life as well. So when you're able to, shed that perfection, there goes you got to speak perfectly. You're also learning how to think, speak, and move on your feet, in the moment. Because again, that's what improv is. You've been handed, here's the task. Now you have to deal with the task, and you can't worry about what's going to happen down the road. You can't worry about what you don't have. And you've probably heard me tell the story about how I got into speaking. Ignorance is bliss. I was just fully present. And that's the other thing that I just love about improv. You have to be fully present. And so this is, again, these are different tools that I teach my clients. We have exercises on improv, just so that they can embrace this a lot more. Because being able to think on your feet when you're answering questions from the audience, that will serve you. Because again, you don't know what those questions are going to be that the audience has. And just as a side note, always keep keep track of the questions that people are asking. If you are recording yourself, make sure you repeat the question, because that's gold. The audience is telling you what else they want to learn or what was unclear in your presentation. And the final thing that I want to say about improv is it allows you to show and tell your truth. And this is what happens when we are able to release being so perfect, embrace our imperfect selves, and embrace our voice. Embrace who we really are to share with the audience. So I hope that you've enjoyed all of this. And if this is your first time listening to my podcast or any of my episodes, or maybe it's your 100th time listening to my podcast, I have a special freebie for you, a directory of places to speak. And that link will be down in the show notes. And that directory of places to speak is a great place to start, especially if you know that you want to get started in speaking, but you just don't know where to start. Who is looking for speakers? This directory of places to speak has well over 30 different organizations. It's divided up into 6 different industries, so that you can reach out to your local chapter of these particular organizations, because these are organizations that are handpicked by me, because I know that they are constantly looking for speakers. They're looking for speakers for their monthly meetings, their weekly meetings, and also their annual or semi-annual conferences. So that directory of places to speak is down in the show notes. So until next week, be in demand. Thanks for hanging out with me. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And join me over in my private Facebook group for more tips, community, and free trainings. You'll find the link in the show notes. You can also help this podcast reach more listeners by leaving a review. And as a thank you, each month I pick one of my reviewers to win a free coaching call with me. So if you haven't done so already, please leave a review and you could be the next winner.